Strong, all brave, all heroes. They're the Herculoids.
Hi everyone, welcome back. If you grew up loving Saturday morning cartoons like I did, or maybe you just like heroic monsters and space fantasy, then you're defo gonna want to stick around. Because after 58 years, one of the most imaginative Hanna-Barbera classics from the 60s and early 80s has been revived in comic form. Crazy, right? Yeah, you guessed it. I'm talking the Herculoids. And in this video, not only will we take a nostalgic trip down memory lane and explore the original cartoon, but we'll also dive deep into the new comics. So, are you excited? Well, put on your spaceship seatbelts and get ready for one heck of an adventure. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What was the Herculoids originally about? Now, this gem of a cartoon first aired in 1967, and was a sci-fi fantasy cartoon produced by Hanna-Barbera, and created and designed by Alex Toth. And when the Herculoids first blasted into our TV screens, it was unlike anything else kids had seen on a Saturday morning segment. It ran for 18 episodes in its original late 60s run, and then saw a revival including 11 more brand new episodes in the early 80s, as part of the Space Stars show. And rightly so, because audiences definitely wanted more. So, the show drops you onto the planet Amzot, which was renamed to Quasar in the revival, and boy are you in for a ride. The entire story revolves around Xandor, a space barbarian warrior, his wife Terra, and their son Dorno. But what made the show unforgettable wasn't just the family, but their fun, inventive, zany bunch of creatures that were this mashup of pets and superheroes. You had Zoc, the bat-winged dragon, who could emit laser beams from his eyes and tail, breathe fire, and was also capable of interstellar travel. How cool, right? Then there was Igu, who was the giant rock ape with skin tougher than steel. Igu was even shown to wade through lava with his rock-like skin. But what was surprising and even refreshing was how gentle, kind, and devoted he was. There was also a space rhinoceros triceratops hybrid, called Tundro, which was this insane concoction with 10 legs and 4 horns, and he could fire explosive rocks from his horn and spin his head like a drill. A very handy ability, I must say. Last but not least, we have Gloop and Gleep, the lovable shape-shifting blobs who could stretch, cushion, and morph into pretty much anything at all. Together, this mismatched but loyal group defended their world against a never-ending parade of villains. Like genuinely never-ending, from aliens, robots, and mutants like the Faceless People, Destroyer Ants, Raider Apes, Mutoids, Arnoids, Zorbots, what fun names, to the power-hungry scientists who all wanted to invade or exploit Amzot. What made the cartoon stand out wasn't just the action, though there was plenty of that. It was the sense of family and loyalty that tied everyone together. The creatures weren't just tools, but more like companions. Each episode, of course, was a standalone adventure with the usual monster of the day formula, but with fun sci-fi and fantasy twists. And even though the show was relatively short compared to many others, it definitely left behind a legacy full of action, heroics, and space shenanigans. And that legacy has fortunately been revived and continued through the newly released comic issues. So let's get into that. The new continuation, comic series revival. Now, back in 2024, Dynamite Entertainment revealed that the Herculoids would return in comic book form, and would be written by Tom Snigoski, who's known for Vampirella and even Hellboy, with art by Craig Rousseau, the guy known for Batman Beyond, one of my personal favorites. The new comics had a similar premise, in that the planet Asmot is still legendary for its riches as well as its guardians, and of course, it attracts a bunch of raiders and pirates from various galaxies. But the comics do indeed introduce some new characters and fresh faces, and we're about to take you through the first 2 issues in detail. This is your official spoiler alert warning, so if you haven't read them yet and want to, go do it ASAP. And let's get into the story. Issue number 1. The comic opens quite sinisterly by painting the picture of a universe as one full of bounty, riches, and treasures that it keeps hidden but needs taken by force. And it specifically talks about a particular planet and has enough resources to satiate an entire galaxy for generations to come. Quasar, also known as Amzot, both names meaning paradise. These are the rumors that Quintel had heard. Who's Quintel, you ask? He's a human antagonist in the comics who's basically a mercenary hell-bent on raiding Amzot. Now, the setting changes to this seedy off-world tavern or bar on Barbera 11, maybe a nod to the original creators Hanna-Barbera, where Quintel is discussing these rumors with a cyborg alien. Turns out, the new cyborg alien was actually one of the only survivors of a mission that landed its crew on Amzot, all due to a navigational error caused by some stray black hole. They were, of course, amazed by what they had accidentally stumbled upon and wanted to claim all the the riches and resources for themselves. However, that's when they came across the voracious defenders of the planet, monsters who would stop at nothing to protect their planet. And the rest of his crew perished while he was left alive as a warning to any others who dared invade Amzot. Naturally, after hearing this horrific story, Quintel, rather than being scared, was simply excited to know the exact location of Amzot from the survivor. But the survivor seems set on taking that information to the grave, refusing to be the cause of any more deaths. Do you really think that would stop our villainous mercenary? Nope. He instantly banged the survivor on the head with a sci-fi device to extract his memory and leave him dead. And I must say the artwork was super convincing, since Quintel legit had this wicked crooked smile on his face that gave me the chills. So he and his crew took off for Amzot, although some of the crew were debating and divided by the stories of Amzot's monsters. Nonetheless, like every ruthless evil leader, Quintel gave some words of motivation and riled everyone up. Now this is where the action begins. The mercenary fleet has a bumpy ride down to the planet, and this page finally shows us, in all his glory, Xandor, who blows a horn signaling battle and incoming danger while promising that they too will be dealt with, like all the invaders before them. Iconic scene, absolutely. And one by one, the comic pages introduce each one of the monsters, rather guardians, beginning with the rock ape Igu, then the winged dragon Zoc, followed by what looks like the 8-legged rhino Tundro, and of course Gleep and Gloop, carrying Dorno and Terra on their backs respectively. And they all go to join Xandor in his call. In the meantime, Quintel and co. scorch a whole patch of forest land to clear a landing zone, burning alive a whole bunch of animals without any mercy whatsoever. And as they prepare to set up their base of operations, in comes Igu, who smashes a rock right at them. Then there's Tundro, who smashes their spaceships and encampments, while Gleep and Gloop trap other mercenaries in their jelly-like bodies. This whole section basically introduces us to the unique powers of each member. And next up, we have Zoc, who shoots laser beams from his eyes. Now, Quintel has lost all contact with his crew as he desperately tries to reach them and communicate. However, he is instead greeted by the protectors of Amzot, the Herculoids. And that's where the first issue ends. A fun refresher with some really vibrant panels that brings us back to the Herculoids and reminds us exactly what we've been missing. Now, most of this does feel a little repetitive to what we already know about the premise and the characters, but in their defense, this issue is meant to be a setup that's building the foundation for subsequent issues. Of course, Quintel is still indeed alive, and if we've learned one thing about him, it's that he's relentless. And with that, let's move on to the next issue. Issue number 2. Now, the second issue starts with what's really this cool side-by-side of the past and present. The past shows how, instead of giving up and gracefully accepting his defeat, Quintel went to investors and other groups to procure additional security and support for his second attempt at invading and looting Amzot. And in the present, he's already back on Amzot with his new refurbished army to wreak havoc on the Herculoids. And holy crap, does he do exactly that. His troops execute a tactical strike designed to separate the Herculoids and capture Dorno, the family's son. He threatens Dorno's life and orders the rest of the Herculoids to scurry away, which they then indeed do to protect Dorno. Now, this is the emotional pivot of the issue. It immediately raises the stakes, because now the fight is not simply for territory, but for a loved one. Now, Quintel and his troops take Dorno back to the command center, where they hold him captive. In the meantime, Xandor is trying to figure out how to get Dorno back, proposing that they strike when it's dark, but Terra objects, reminding them that it could be dangerous, and Dorno's life hangs in the balance. So together they decide to give it some time and see what Dorno is able to do by himself. You know, give the boys some sense of agency. During this time, Dorno has finally awoken and finds himself with a bomb collar around his neck, and Quintel threatening him to stay in line. His troops are getting the extractors and refineries in place to plunder the planet's treasures. Naturally, Xandor is becoming impatient and really wants to orchestrate a counterattack. But the Herculoids suddenly notice that Gleep has disappeared. Where to, you ask? Well, to help Dorno, of course. He goes right to Dorno and helps him take off the explosive device when Quintel is taunting them and calling them weak. Once free, Dorno straight up punches Quintel and gets on the back of Gleep, throwing the bomb at the enemy troops. Now, of course, the mercenary troops begin shooting at Dorno, but the Herculoids come to the rescue, this time with full strategy and teamwork. The villains get overwhelmed, and Quintel makes the decision to leave the planet with whatever they've extracted, promising they will be back with an even bigger army. But the Herculoids don't plan on letting them all escape. They thrash Quintel onto the ground, where he comes across Xing, the accomplice he lost on Amzot during Issue 1's battle. Xing repeatedly warns Quintel, telling him to leave, and that the planet doesn't belong to them, and they shouldn't take what isn't theirs. But it falls on deaf ears. In the meantime, Zoc ramps up the fire and destroys most of the escape ships, and the same lines that started Issue 1 reverberate and repeat during the ending in a very poetic manner. Zoc does indeed successfully take down most of their ships, but the Herculoids let some escape so as to carry forward a message: do not mess with Amzot. But here's the twist, guys. That's not where the story ends. The next issues are set up on the very last panel, where something dark and mysterious is shown to be brewing underneath Amzot. The final scene shows a monster in the dark with glowing eyes, claiming that they have awakened. Who is it? Well, you gotta read the rest of the issues to find out. What has the fan response been? There has been pretty decent and positive feedback for the comics. The Saturday morning cartoon feel is definitely intact, with the big, colorful, action-packed imagery. The character designs have also been praised a lot for evoking the original without feeling dated. However, some reviewers do wonder whether the danger is high enough or whether the threats and villains will be bigger in scale and more interesting than just the Monster of the Week style. Which kinda is a fair question, since fans are looking for a fresh take on the cartoon rather than the same old same old. It's of course good to invoke nostalgia, but you gotta sprinkle in some excitement and novelty too. Why this continuation is meaningful. The importance of this cartoon actually goes beyond nostalgia. It's been around 58 years since the Herculoids first aired, and the world of comics and pop culture has changed a lot since then. It's also extremely rare for a 60s cartoon to be revived in such a way that it both respects its roots and reaches new audiences, but this one really seems to be doing that. Moreover, Alex Toth's character and monster designs are iconic. The new comic's visuals and character portrayals show real respect to the original. This specific cartoon and comic also deals with several very relevant themes, particularly in today's world, from environmentalism and nature versus tech to colonization, occupation, and invasions. I actually think it's the perfect blend of fun and fantasy with slightly more serious themes. Marvelous verdict. Putting it all together, the Herculoids comics are more than just a nostalgia trip, but rather a loving continuation that shows there's still life, and hella monsters in Amzot. It feels like the original, but just much more polished. And I'd actually give the issue somewhere between a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. I think it's definitely worth your time, especially if you love the original cartoon. Don't believe me? Go and see them for yourself and let us know your reviews in the comments down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss out on such videos in the future. And we'll see you next time. Thanks everyone!